Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in person. It's great to see a lot of folks here. Appreciate you joining us. And I just want to take a few minutes to say welcome and introduce myself. I'm Stephen Roberts. I'm the Land Use and Transportation Department Director for Washington County. So that includes the Planning and Development Services team that you'll be hearing from today. And so I do want to just welcome you all here. Who's doing slides? Oh, wait, look. I have a thing here. Okay, look at that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyway, well, I thought we had a purpose slide, but anyway, so I'll just succinctly state the purpose for our development forums is really just an opportunity for us to share some information out with our development customers and community members, and then for you all to be able to ask questions of us and for us to just have opportunities after the formal part of the presentation just to interact with staff. And again, want to welcome everyone and appreciate you being here. With that, I will turn over to Erin Wardell. She's our Planning and Development Services Manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everybody. It really is good to see such a good turnout this morning. We had some preamble text that many of you have seen at other development forums about how we really see this as a partnership and an ongoing collaboration with our development community. And Stephen and I take that really seriously. And so part of this is building these relationships and having the opportunity for all of you to ask us questions. So with that, I'm going to jump into our slides. We have some exciting staffing updates here at the county. So as many of you know, our building official, Scott Linfesti, retired back in August, and Derek Moon has accepted the interim building official role. So I think Derek is hiding somewhere. There he is in the back. Really happy to have Derek stepping into that role. So he's been doing a lot on the floor, wearing a couple of different hats. We also have a number of other new staff who you may have interacted with out in the field. We're really happy to have 4 inspectors, and we were able to get them up to speed really quickly. And many of you have probably interacted with them. It's really a great group. We have 2 new permit technicians, 1 new development review planner, 2 new administrative assistants, and an accounting assistant. So hopefully some of those processes that you'd seen getting a little bit stuck or not moving as quickly as they used to have been unstuck, and we're back to relatively normal response times with all of these new staff on board. But we still have vacancies, and so you'll be seeing some recruitments either active now or coming out in the next couple of weeks for some additional critical staff positions that we need. We have 2 open inspector positions, 1 for an electrical specialist, 1 for a plumbing specialist. Really looking forward to filling these 2 roles. They're very, very important. So if you know anyone, really happy to see applicants for those. We're also looking in our ETS division, our Engineering and Traffic Services division, looking for an Engineering Tech 3 and a Survey Tech 3. And then our upcoming job postings, the building official will post, I think, this weekend. We'll have a plans examiner 2 position going up soon, and then engineer and senior engineer, again, over in our engineering division, and another posting for an associate planner for development review. So keep an eye out and send us great candidates. So with that, we're going to go to our first content topic, which is looking at residential building permit data trends. And I'm going to turn this over to Ken Rencher, who's one of our senior planners. And Ken's making his way up from the back of the room.
Hello, as Erin said, I'm Ken Rencher. I'm one of the senior transportation planners. I'm just going to do a quick recap of the residential building permit trends in Washington County. And these are coming largely from the Census Bureau. Each jurisdiction in the county that processes building permits reports these on a monthly basis, and then they get aggregated to the county. So looking at Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas counties, and then take a deeper dive into Washington County, focusing on some of our place by place, city by city jurisdiction. Okay. This slide and the next one show the single family building permits, and the next one shows multifamily over the last 5 years. And during this time, Washington County has accounted for 44% of the single family housing units and 23% of the multifamily units built in the 3-county region. The nearly 8,500 single-family building permits issued in Washington County over the last 5 years is the most of any county in the state. in 2018, Washington County multifamily units were about 9% of the region's total. By 2022, the county share had more than tripled to 33% of the multifamily permits issued. This change is partly a result of an increase in the permits in Washington County, and partly a result of the dramatic decrease in the multifamily units permitted by Multnomah County after 2019. Focusing now on just Washington County and expanding the time back to 2010, you can see the single family housing units in blue, the multifamily in orange. On average, there were building permits issued for about 2,700 housing units per year, just over 1,500 single family units and slightly less than 1,200 multifamily units. Shown here are the top 5 jurisdictions in terms of residential building permit volume. Again, over that same 2010 to 2022 time period. You can see that for the single family units, the largest share of permits is issued by Washington County. This is largely unincorporated county, though we do run the permits for Banks, Gaston, and North Plains. On average, those 3 smaller cities average around 100 permits a year or fewer. For multifamily, the story is a little bit different. The bulk of the multifamily units are coming from city of Hillsborough, about 36% or so over this time period. About 22% city of Beaverton, and 19% unincorporated county, and 13% in Tigard. With that, then we'll turn it over unless there's any questions on building permits.
I think we had a question.
Yeah, you also look at industrial permits.
We do. We track the commercial permits. That was just out of scope of this presentation.
Thanks, Ken. We have a couple of slides now on some of our ongoing process improvements. We've had a section on process improvement. I think for the last 2 development forums, I've been in this role for just over a year. I became permanent in November of last year. And so this is something that I've been working on implementing throughout the division. And so I wanted to give you an update on some of these various efforts that we have. So these slides are talking about what we've implemented and then what's coming up in the future. So these are some of our wins, some of the things that we've accomplished so far. We have developed our target service levels, which is what we call them internally for staff training and accountability purposes, but you will see them on the website as our timelines, because these are the timelines that you can generally expect for your applications to take. We'll have an improvement on that where we'll start reporting out our actual timelines at some point in the future, but for right now, you can go to the website and see what our timelines are. We have started reconvening a meeting that happened many years ago and we found to be really efficient, which is our weekly alteration permit review meeting. So we bring together all the staff who need to be involved in these permits and bring forward, an average of 6 per meeting and just have all the right people in the room making the decisions and getting things through the system. And so we started doing this several weeks back and it's been really successful. So we're very happy about bringing this part back into our process. We've also made a couple of changes online. You can now submit your pre-application forms and your floodplain information requests online, and you can pay your fees online as well. As some of you recall, this used to be a paper process and you would have to mail it to us through the United States Post Service along with your check. So we thought that making that available online was a pretty good improvement for a relatively simple form and simple part of our process. We'd like to be able to do this with more forms and more of our processes too going forward. As a part of all of this process improvement work, we have bi-weekly meetings, again, with key staff involved, talking about where we're at with our process improvement efforts, what needs to be coming up next, how things are going. And then again, we're able to make decisions on the spot and keep up our accountability for having these process improvement pieces move forward. So this is what those target service levels and timelines look like on the website. There's the development review timeline graphic on the left and the building permit timeline on the right. As I said, we'd like to see these be more dynamic in the future. And so let's say we end up with a shortage of inspectors again, and you're going to see delays on the inspection timelines. We would update these numbers to show actual timeline is 5 days or something like that. Hopefully that doesn't happen because you're all going to find some great candidates for our open inspector jobs. So we end up fully staffed in our inspection team, but just in case so that people would know what they can expect. So some of our upcoming process improvements, and some of these will involve you as our partners. One of the first things we'd like to start doing are stakeholder interviews of people who actually use our systems. So find out how the permit process is working from your side of things and what your experiences are with our technology right now. This is really important because of point 2, which is that we are looking at implementing online applicant submittal, which would allow for direct permit submittals. As we move into that, we really want to better understand customer experience. And this won't just be staff from my division. This also will involve the county's information technology staff because they're the actual implementers of the software and of these tools. So they need to hear from you about your experiences with it so that they can make OAS successful for both of our sides. We'll also be working on development review current planning submittals. We would like this to become a paperless process going into the future, like we've done with many of our other county processes. This is a pretty big effort to do, but it's something that we're taking a look at and thinking about how we can do that with our existing software. We're also working on updating all of our checklists for permit submittals and our review checklists. Again, this is part of accountability and understanding our process, training new staff when they come on board, and giving you certainty about what's going to happen as your processes are moving through on the 3rd floor. So a couple of things that are underway. We need to move both Acela and Project Docs into the cloud. Magical technology stuff that we're doing with our information technology staff again. Project Docs moving to the cloud is required in order to implement OAS, and then Acela is moving to the cloud. So we have to do that anyway. So these will take a number of, I think the Acela conversion is on a longer time frame. We need to do PDocs within the next several months. We're in the demo and research phase of OAS, which is the direct permit submittal. So then we'll be looking at how we can actually implement that. I would love to have it in place before the next July 1st fee change. And so we're really pushing on that timeline for it. We're also taking a look at our workflows. This is internal to the software of both Acela and PDocs, and making sure that we don't have extra loops in there that we don't need in our processes. We've developed these systems. We did it very quickly on the fly. In a lot of ways, we made them replicate paper processes, and they don't need to replicate paper processes because they're electronic. So this is really an opportunity for us to audit how we're doing things and see how we can make it better. And then we are talking about our policy and workflow development for early addressing. So I know this is something of key interest to a number of people. We're making this work when we need to, but we don't really have a set policy and workflow for it. So this is something that we're working on developing. And that's it for process improvements. Any questions on that before we move on to grading? Great. We'll have time at the end for questions too. So if you want to hold them until then, that's totally fine. With that, we have some slides now on our grading permit process. And I'm going to invite Kofi and Kim up to give this presentation.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you for coming. And I think that grading is such a key component in planning and development services, development processes. And we believe that we can achieve it with your help. You know, we approach it together as partners. Simply because grading, when it comes to implementing development, actual work, you know, surrounding the base, the first thing they see is their neighborhood has changed. So I think that the more we get into the idea that we are all together to cooperate and work together, I believe that we can achieve the optimum whereby the developer can get their part, and we as code enforcement body also can achieve our part. So with that said, I think that the key thing about grading is really to safeguard the health, the safety, and the properties for the existing properties around, and also for the development itself. And also to make sure that, you know, drainage is managed, especially around the property lines. Entering into this process, you know, I've been an engineer with DEQ for some time. I've been an engineer as a private consultant, but really grading taught me a lot of things that I never discovered. I remember that there was a development subdivision that happens about quarter mile away. A neighbor who is downstream quarter miles away came and said that because of this development, I'm having basement and other drainage issue. I said, well, engineering is not possible. Well, guess what? We're wrong. There was a direct connection. So the whole idea here is that I think that when, as a developer and also we as planning development services, when we work together, I believe that we can achieve the two objectives here in such a way that, it will be a win-win for us. So with that said, I think that our team will come in and take over the processes, and I will come back.
Okay, so yeah, I guess once you have planning approval, the next step is to fill out your grading application. You find those on our website and under building services, maybe engineering, but there's probably one spot on the website where you'd find that, and you complete that. You email it to the permit tech email address. They'll set it up. And then you're sent a link to pay your fees electronically and instructions on how to set up a Project Docs account, where you will upload your grading plans, your other supporting documents, whether it's, drainage analysis, geotech reports, things like that. There's a 30-day grading review period that it goes through. Once that's done, part of that review is we'll do most often a site evaluation, just to look at the site in person. The grading review letter is sent with our grading review comments. The minimum would be an acknowledgement form that's within that package. That's signed by the project team, property owners, and that's sent back to us via Project Docs. We'll review it, approve it, go through file check, and then an email is sent to the applicant letting them know of any fees due, and they can then go into the approved folder and print their approved plan set and start work. At the end, once they start work, we're out in the field about every other week, and we hit as many sites as we can. A lot of you probably know that we're out there from morning till night. I mean, we're out there until it gets dark. And so we hit those as many, like I said, as many as we can. If you never hear from us, that means we don't have any comments, and the sites look really, really well. They're being constructed as we expect. If there are anything that we see or questions that we have that need clarification, I will send emails around usually to the developer, the superintendents, anybody that I kind of know. And once the project is complete, we need civil as-built plans from the civil engineer, the geotech summary report, compaction reports, field reports, all their backup and observations, and then the completion forms from the contractor, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer. All that's emailed to me. That's the signal to me that you're ready for final inspection, and Kofi and I go out there and do that. And then I will email usually the project team about any results or anything that needs to be corrected out in the field. And that's the process.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah. Okay, so now you know the process. So the question is, why do we need grading? Well, we need grading because anytime you touch the site, you give water away either to flow or to reverse the flow. Or if the water cannot flow, well, guess what happens? It seeps through the ground and possibly you will experience landslide. Slide number 1 shows a typical grading work that was done by a property owner without a grading permit. And unfortunately, as you can see, the turbidity of the creek and other downstream impact. Slide number, the picture number 2 is quite interesting. Washington County, especially the rural areas, more people want to live there. This is supposed to be a shared housing, very expensive, exotic cars. And because of nearby development, just, you know, a home about 5,000-6,000 square foot. Just a simple rain, they notice this runoff in front of it, caused by grading work. Well, slide number 3 shows a private drive, Washington County Planning and Development Services. When the road is not public, it falls upon us. So this is the only access serving the community. And what happened was the community decided to cut a ditch on the upper side without making provision for the water to drain. So what the water did was it seeped underneath the road and almost wiped half of the road out. So slide number 4 is the repair for that condition. Now let's come closer. This is also another situation of drainage setback and resulting geotechnical or geohazard that could happen. Well, slide number 1 shows completed development that because of all the roof and impervious areas, the neighbor below got, flooded. Slide number 3 was quite an interesting. It was clear for a road if you look at it carefully. Yeah, this is a road as well. They jumped the gun before we permitted it. So when we went out, like Kim said, for inspection, we noticed that just overnight, half of this dropped about 4 feet deep. So I think the water management and soil dynamics is quite interesting. And of course, slide number 4 shows somebody who came in. He has a large parcel, decided to build at the upstream to get a view and directed the runoff to this detention. Unfortunately, as you can see, that's another property below. So this is not even the design storm. So we got involved at this point and say, you have a problem. So that's what grading is really about. And I will go further. This is a case that I would like to stress here. The goal here is developers are very good in building the frontage, because that's what promotes selling. Well, the issue we have is grading is meant to work the developer to look at the side yard and also the rear yard. Slide number 1 shows before this development with a fence and a woody retaining wall, the natural ground used to have a measure of ponding, local ponding, but it used to spread. So the developer, this home came, they built this 2 feet unpermitted wall, and guess what happened? It rains, and the neighbor who had lived there for many years experienced sagging. Simply because something wasn't following the grading code. So slide number 2 is actually a good attempt to prevent the condition of picture number 2. So as you can see, we have a concrete patio. Rather than filling around it, the developer working with us, we're able to pull the fill back so that in case of local ponding, at least it will spread, it will share across the property line. The same situation applies to slide number 4 here. Again, the driveway, private street serving multiple lots. This space is about 3 feet, if you look at the width of the track here. And the purpose is to create not to disturb the property line, because if you don't disturb the property line, any existing drainage issue will be shared equally across the property line. And we have this situation. This is a subdivision built on a sloping side. And as you can see, that's actually, this is property line, the fence, and this is a retaining wall. So to mitigate or prevent drainage, this wall was built so that there can be a reverse rear yard drainage to an approved system. Oh, sorry. So that was the situation that grading permit tries to avoid. This slide with pictures also showed the situation that grading permit wants to promote, working with the developer. So as you can see here, the same frontage condition. However, because the developer working together, decide to comply with our setback requirements, we have a nice side yard. There's no need to worry about drainage. The rear yard, actually we have some area basin, catch basins here. We have side yard. So this is one of the ideal what grading code is all about, just to promote nice built environment whereby both the builder and also the property owners, both existing and future ones, can enjoy their investment. So in order to achieve this condition, there is something in the grading code we call setback. And in my professional opinion, this setback solves 90% of all the drainage problems we have. When we comply with this setback requirements, all the drainage problems we have will be solved. We've had several instances whereby existing neighbors complain that, hey, I've lost my view because of the development. So, well, according to the setback, the developer comply with it, and that's code. The code can only enforce the minimum. But when the setback, simple as 2 feet, is encroached, you just open yourself to all kinds of, venting. They may not like the development, they cannot stop it, but they will use grading to drag us into it. So the setback figure is a requirement for every project that permit that we issue. I've had some engineers asking, the setback doesn't apply to my case. So that's true. Grading, our purpose is, you give us initial design information, we look at it. We just approve it, believing that it will work if you follow the conditions. At the end of it, that's why you document through as built, actual work you have done. So this setback is really meant to guide so that we don't run into last minute changes. And it is because of this setback figure also does another thing I want to stress. Typically, we have a grading permit whereby the site will be prepped, done for home construction. Depending upon the organization, after the development is done, the builder may come in. The building team may have no idea about all the, what went into the grading permit. So grading permit, this setback gives us the opportunity to put conditions of approval. So developers, that I think that Kim touched base on it. We normally approve it with conditions. CE 1, GE 2, geotechnical engineer required, move far away from property lines, things like that. So all to comply with the setback figure. So as you can see from here, the grading actually is done, the fine grading. One of the conditions here was that all footing excavation should be hauled off, but the developer decided to The builder decided to spread it. Of course, neighbors complain, this one it doesn't meet our setback, so if there is an issue, they say, sorry, the same thing applies with this. So in short, grading permit is really meant to help, I call it good builders build good products. At the same time, building services and planning and development, helping them to do what they are good at, making sure that the minimum threshold is complied with. With that said, I'm done. Any questions?
You didn't say anything about the Clean Water Services water quality ponds, which take water from a wide area and put it into the pond and then have a single output. How does the grading permit accommodate water quality facilities?
Well, you know, Washington County is expressed quite a bit, as you saw the home statistics. Within the unincorporated area and within what CWS service area, building services, planning and development services, our focus is if it's a single lot, just the lot within the property line. That's all what we have authority to enforce. We care about, you know, cross-property drainage. But if CWS permit is required with system, we step out of it. That's CWS issue. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
We'll be here after the presentations for more questions too. Our next topic is our significant natural resources, Goal 5 limited update and our enforcement order. And Teresa Cherniak is going to give that presentation.
Hi, good morning, everybody. We'll turn to, a longer range, bigger picture topic here. So some of you know that we've been working on updating our significant natural resource regulations for a while. Some of you also know that we have an enforcement order on us to kind of speed us along on doing that work. So we wanted to give an update to you on the work that we've been doing and a little bit on the enforcement order. Michelle Miller is here too. She's the project manager on our significant natural resources work. So if you have questions that stump me, Michelle will be able to answer those. And let's see. So a little bit of background on why the county is updating its natural resource regulations. A lot of you know about statewide land use planning Goal 5. That's the one about natural resources. It requires local governments to identify and apply appropriate protections to significant natural resource areas. It doesn't necessarily say exactly what you have to do. It lays out a process and allows the local government to figure out which resources, how to balance those resources with development and other uses, and then what regulations to put on it. So we did adopt policies and regulations in the early 1980s. We were kind of an early adopter. State law did change after that, but our policies and regulations were acknowledged by the state in the 1980s. Changes to state law in 2017, I think somewhat unintentionally maybe, expanded the requirements for land use regulations to be clear and objective, to apply to all housing, not just needed housing, and on all land, not just buildable land. So that, as a result, caused some of our development applications to be challenged. And we did get a lot of legal scrutiny during that time. There were a couple LUBA cases that were decided, Land Use Board of Appeals. And so we started working on updating our regulations in 2020. We adopted some, those were challenged, and they were remanded back to us for further changes. Part of what that legal challenge or those legal challenges came to is that some of the county's regulations were not clear and objective. And as a result, there was a petition filed with the Land Conservation and Development Commission, LCDC, that said that since some of the county's regulations weren't clear and objective, we were out of compliance with Goal 5. The LCDC agreed with the petitioner on that. And so they issued an enforcement order directing us to amend our regulations. They gave us until October 1st of 2024. And so that's what we've been working on and working toward. At the same time, they issued a stay on development that might affect wildlife habitat until our regulations are effective. And so what the stay means is that our planning staff can't review residential development applications that would impact wildlife habitat. It doesn't apply to non-residential projects, so commercial, industrial, schools, that sort of thing wouldn't be affected. Or where a development has already had a development review that went through our natural resource regulations, those are exempted. And it would allow development on a site with wildlife habitat if you weren't affecting that wildlife habitat. So to address all of this, oh, sorry. I should have advanced. So this is the information about the stay. And so all of that is in effect until we do adopt our new regulations, and those are expected to be adopted by October 1st of next year. So to address all of this, we have been working away on updating our natural resources inventory. And from there, we'll update our regulations. So we've called this project a focus look at fish and wildlife habitat. This is the homepage for that website where you can go to get a lot of information about what we're doing. You can look at the timeline there and the different opportunities for getting involved. We do have a consultant team that we're working with. That's MIG and DEA. MIG is also formerly Angelo, so some of the planners from Angelo Planning are working on that. We have a technical advisory committee that does include some of the people who are here today. There are community representatives as well as development representatives and state office, Department of Forestry, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Clean Water Services. So a range of technical experts to help us as we work through the process. So the process is pretty prescribed by state rules. This is the process we'll need to go through. First, inventory, then the EC stands for economic, social, environmental, and economic. So we need to look at the impacts, the EC impacts of allowing conflicting uses on natural resources. And when I'm talking about natural resources, I'm talking about riparian areas, which are those areas that are adjacent to waterways that have vegetation that provides fish and wildlife habitat. And then areas upland from that also have trees and shrubs and other smaller ground covers and such that provide habitat for fish and wildlife. So the step after then analyzing the impact. So that's where you balance between allowing development and protecting the resources. And you're looking at how you weigh and balance that. And then the final step is to develop our local Goal 5 program, which includes changes to our comprehensive plan policies, as well as our development regulations. And so right now our development regulations are in section 422 of our code and scattered in a couple other sections, I think 407 and a couple other places. So we'll be looking at all of that, but that the regulations part depends on these other steps. And where we've started, we didn't start way back with doing a whole new inventory. We had done the inventory, the county's inventory back in the 1980s. Metro did an additional inventory in the early 2000s. So we are relying on those two inventories and starting from those to then update the information. So we're well into the inventory step. And we will have actually we have an online open house that will be starting on the 20th of October. There is a website, a web resource that we've got for property owners. So if you are a property owner with identified natural resources, you will have gotten a notice yesterday or today that you have that, and that you'll have access to an interactive map that shows the updated inventory and a little bit about the project. So like I said, we're starting with the county and metro mapping. We're overlaying those. Those have been both, they've both been out there. We've sort of been using both, but it's, I think, been a little confusing for people on exactly how does the metro one come into our regulations. And so we'll be consolidating those two. For the most part, we're finding that the metro inventory is more up to date and more accurate than the county's old inventory, particularly for riparian. So we will be, for the most part, using that. And then when it says adjust the map for significance, so we are looking at whether the resources continue to be significant. If they've been developed, they are no longer significant. So we're taking out the developed areas. And then small slivers that maybe don't provide any habitat value anymore. And then there's a manual, that's all a GIS electronic map exercise. So we'll do a manual review and data cleanup. We've done most of that already. And then something that's new is that since we did our inventory in the 1980s and since Metro did theirs in the early 2000s, areas have been added to the urban growth boundary. And so our old mapping was not super accurate or detailed with those. For those areas, if a city has done additional work, we will be incorporating the city's updated natural resource mapping into that mapping. If they haven't, we'll be again starting with the metro riparian and upland areas and bringing that in. So that's the inventory process. After that, then we'll be starting into the EC analysis, and we have started drafting that. We have a methodology that our consultants are using. And that's where it's going to indicate what level of protection maybe there should be for the different resources. So just because you're identified as a natural resource does not mean that that's full protection of that resource. It doesn't mean that now, it won't mean that into the future. There probably will be higher levels of protection for water related areas. And that's under Metro, that and the Metro program, that's what has been determined is the most critical and needs the most protection. And then the upland will get some level of protection. So that's what we'll be assessing through this EC analysis process and then developing those regulations. So our expectation is we'll file an ordinance by April of 2024. And then go through the ordinance hearing process. So that'll mean through the Planning Commission and through the Board of Commissioners and hopeful adoption by October 1st of next year. So community engagement, we've been doing a lot. We were at a lot of community events throughout the summer, letting people know what we're doing, trying to get to a wide range of folks. We have made offers to meet with a variety of people. Like I said, we have a technical advisory committee that includes developer representative, the Planning Commission, a wide range of folks. We did just send a letter to property owners that have mapped significant resources. The idea is we need to let people know as early as possible in the process that they may be affected and allow them to be able to participate in the full process and helping with development of the regulations. there is this development forum. And then we do have a community forum October 24th. So that's in 2 weeks from yesterday, a couple days ago. And there we'll show the draft inventory. We'll have, so we'll talk through the whole process. We'll have maps that show the inventory. For the property owners, we'll have computers with interactive maps and the ability to look at those in person and talk through what some of it may mean. And then we'll start talking about this EC analysis at that forum. So you're all welcome to come. And if you are not on our interested parties list now, please go to that website and sign up. And we'll get you on there and you'll get notice of the meeting. At the same time, with that community forum, same materials essentially will be available in an online open house if people can't make it, or if you want to look at it some more, think about it some more, and that'll be available through November 10th. And for the most part, we don't have specific survey questions. We'll be just asking what are your comments? What do you think? Are there things you think we need to think about as we do this work? And then we've been reaching out to underrepresented groups and community-based organizations and are making presentations as requested on that. So with that, I will wrap up and can answer any questions. Matt.
The letter that got sent out, did it get sent to people that were affected by the maps as they exist today, or by the
It's by the refined maps that we have developed. And expanded areas and contracted areas. Yeah, in some cases.
And then will the EC quantify the impacts to development potentially based upon what different decisions might get on regulations? Like development land lost.
I believe so, yes. Yeah. If you're interested in the methodology that will be laid out in the online open house, how we'll be doing that. And it's a pretty detailed process of identifying all the different possible effects or impacts from different types of land uses and looking at kind of pros and cons of those. And then thinking through how do you weigh those. So, yeah.
Will
Bruce.
the results of this be rolled into the community plans?
Yes. Yeah. So the significant natural resources are identified on a map in the community plans or several maps in the community plans. There are also policies in the community plans about natural resources in that particular area, and those are referenced in our code. So we will be looking at all of that and updating the maps in the plans and probably updating those policies. Stephen. Yeah.
Hadn't planned to say anything, but I just want to give some acknowledgement to Teresa and Michelle and our team that are really working on this. I think we've kind of at a big picture, we have a really challenging task ahead of us to develop clear and objective regulations that are around things that are just inherently subjective. Natural areas change and evolve over time. And so I think that's a real challenge. And we really just haven't gotten any good guidance from the state and others to try to help facilitate those conversations. So we're really in uncharted territory, I think, in some ways here. So I just want to give an acknowledgement to the team and, just appreciate the support that we've gotten from folks as we're working through this. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, the clear and objective standards is a tough one for inherently subjective types of resources. And lots of different kinds of situations that are out there with natural resources, and how do you address all of them in a fair kind of way? And a lot of other jurisdictions, well, they recognize that their regulations aren't clear and objective, but they haven't been challenged yet, maybe. So a lot of them are watching us and seeing how we're doing this and how they might need to do it before they get in a similar kind of position. Great, thank you.
And that's actually it for our program. So any general questions before we wrap up? Great. Well, refreshments are in the back and staff will be here for any questions you have. Thanks.